Welcome back to Heiko's Garage. Today we are going to perform open heart surgery on my BMW R90/6 and I will take you along. Enjoy. So we are going to replace this abomination of a Chinese-made horn that's currently attached to my motorcycle here. When I bought this bike, it came as a basket case, a project bike. It was completely taken apart. The motor was inside the frame, but not even attached properly. The wheels were attached, but not properly. So everything had to come apart, and then everything had to go back together with a few new bits and pieces, including a $20 Chinese-made horn from eBay, which has been a thorn in my flesh ever since, because it just sounds terrible. It's not very loud at all. It appears relatively nice, you know, chromed surface, and kind of complements the vintage vibe of this motorcycle, but it definitely needs to be replaced. I hate the thing. So now I bought this. Comes from Max BMW, an authorized BMW dealership, and it's called Hupe Komplett 12 Volt Schwarz R60/6 R90S. Right there, hide my face. There you go. So it's a original BMW part, as original as it can be. I bet it is a reproduction. I don't think Hella, that used to make the original, I think, is still making it, but here we go. Looks a little bit more like the stock one that used to be on this bike. Some later models, they had a two-tone horn. So they would have one mounted on this side, one mounted on that side. I have those two-tone horns made by Hella available, used. They came in the basket case. They came in the boxes and the bins. But I just want to have one horn there, just like the original, how it came from the factory. And this is the one that we're going to be putting on today. These are the tools that I have lined up for the job today. So I have a box of terminals. We'll see which ones fit best. And I have a crimper, a needle nose plier, a 13mm wrench, and some Nipex side cutters to cut the old terminals off. They are not the originals. I have put the terminals on that are currently on the wiring harness to make this Chinese abomination fit. But now we're going to make it a little nicer. The shrink tubing that you can see there in those packages are the type that is hot glue lined. So when you shrink them down, they also glue themselves onto the wire and the terminal that you put them onto. So let's get started. So I'll park you guys over here while I'm on the other side. So first we need to use the 13mm wrench, which is already hot from just sitting on the pavement. So let's put my tools in the shade real quick here, under the engine, right there. And then also the shrink tubing, so it doesn't start shrinking just by sitting outside. It's beginning of May. What is today? The 16th of 2022. All right, let's take this loose. It's held on with only one bolt. There is a mounting tab welded right onto the frame here. And then you just, getting my bolt out of this horn is a little bit more complicated than on a stock bike, because right next to it I have my electronic ignition module mounted, which is not stuck to this bike, which is one of those functional upgrades to this bike that make the bike a little bit more, bring it into the modern era. In case you were wondering, the ignition, let's take my watch off. The ignition that I'm running is the Silent Hectic electronic ignition from Germany. I don't think they are currently importing this into the US. I don't think there's any authorized dealer for Silent Hectic here in the US. But there are ways of getting this thing. There's a retailer, BMW parts dealer in Germany called Bayer BMW. They have a pretty good webpage. Oh my goodness, it's kind of hard to get this bolt out if you can't really get to it. And I can't get a ratchet wrench on there either. By our BMW, they ship this here to the States. They have an English webpage, all very nice. And the silent hectic ignition is a crankshaft driven ignition system. Sits right on top of your alternator. Doesn't require any modification to anything other than mounting a module which controls timing, advance, and even a ref limiter. That needs to be mounted on the frame somewhere, and I put it right underneath the voltage regulator. So I mounted it here under the tank, right where the voltage regulator sits. So pretty straightforward. And then the cool thing is that with a silent hectic ignition, you can leave your entire old ignition system, the advance unit and your points and everything and all the wiring in place. And if the, oh, here we go, so it's off. In case the electronic ignition ever has any issues, you can literally reconnect 2 wires and your old ignition system is back in play. So here are the ugly terminals that I crimped on when I installed this Chinese abomination here. Before I cut them off and before we completely put the new one on, I just want to show you what this sounds like. So here's the old one still connected. All right, guys, sorry for my voice. I'm getting over a cold. I'm a little congested still. So here's the sound test for the old horn. It's horrible. Feels like when you're riding, the sound just doesn't come out of this thing anymore. Anyways, so that's the old one. The terminals here, they are a little on the loose side. That's another reason why I want to replace them. Let's just stick the new one on there and see if the sound is any different. At least the look is different. And it's a BMW part with original part number. So let's see. Click and click. Let's just hang this down here. That's different. It's a different tone for sure. All right, so we're going to go ahead and replace the crimp connections here with a little bit of some shrink tubing over it. So the connectors I'm going to be using are 90-degree flag terminals, specifically made for 22 to 18 gauge wire, which we fall right into the middle of it. These are the ones that actually crimp onto the wire here and onto the insulation here. They make a really nice connection as long as you have the right crimper for it. So this one here is not for standard terminals like this, but for those 90-degree ones. Let me check here one more time if I still remember how to put them in here. They go in here right like this. So let's open this up again. So now we're going to snip those off with my Knipex, as we Germans would say. They were also the type that had shrink tubing already attached, so that made kind of a watertight connection. But we're going to try to make this even a little nicer. One tool that I forgot to mention earlier is my automatic wire stripper. This is a European product. Don't know where it was made. Oh, made in Germany by Weicon, Super number 5. I don't know if they still make this, this brand at least. I have seen them on Amazon, so you can get this type of wire stripper. With this little slide here in the front, you can adjust how much insulation is going to be taken off. And then you just take the end of the wire and stick it into the wire stripper and then punch down and it pulls the insulation off very cleanly. So we're just going to do that. See, very clean. Do the second one. It's literally a one-hand operation. Oh, there's still a little. end sticking out from pulling it out of the old terminal there. So very good. Now I picked the size of shrink tubing, I think. Do I have a smaller size? No, that's the smallest size I have with this glue line stuff. Needs to be just large enough to go over the terminal itself. I think it does, pretty tight. I hope I can slide it over. It's kind of warm out here. I wonder at what temperature this stuff inadvertently starts shrinking down. So let's put the rest of it out of the sun. It shouldn't, I don't think. Oh yeah, and another tool that I forgot is my heat gun. So we're just gonna snip off maybe like an inch or so, and we need 2 of those pieces. Just long enough to go over the wire and onto the terminal a little bit. So like that. Stick that on there. I hope we can get it far enough out of the way, or else we might have to shorten it a little bit. Let's put that on the ground. And then grab our crimper that we already have a terminal ready to go. There's still a little tip sticking out here. The wire didn't cut that off very cleanly. All right, and then twist it together a little bit, just so that all the little strands are in one place. Shaky hands, stick it in there. It should fit, yeah. Okay, and then give it a good crimp. The crimper will not release until you are able to push it all the way down. And then you can give it a pull. See, that's what you always have to check. The crimpers here, they are adjustable. You can make them so that they crimp harder, and that's what we're going to have to do now. I'm just going to get a Phillips head screwdriver real quick. So with this little Phillips head screw removed, you can just grab this little wheel here and move it a tooth or two further over. There's a plus and a minus. You just follow the direction and then put the screw back in. So the bolt in here is an accenter, so if you move it, the jaws will be pinched harder together. And that's what we needed to do. I will of course test it, and we're going to repeat this process until we get a crimp that is solid. Even though these are quality crimpers and quality terminals, they were of course not made by the same company, so you have to adjust the tolerance that you want or need. Oops, dropped the terminal. This is the old crimped one. Of course, we're not going to try to reuse the already once crimped terminal. So we're going to insert another terminal into our crimper here and close it down, and then it holds it. And now we're going to try this again. So nothing that we need to do here on the wire end. Stick it in. Yeah, and now it's a little harder to pinch them together. So that should be doing it. And then we can pull on it one more time. This time it's good. Then we slide the shrink tubing over the terminal, over the end of the terminal, as you can see here. And then we're going to do the second one here. Again, we need to put the shrink tubing on first. Find the terminal that I just dropped. Load it into our crimper. like so. Get the shrink tubing out of the way. Stick the terminal onto the cable here, onto the wire. And now with that adjustment, crimping really becomes a two-hand operation to push it together. And then the terminal comes on. We give it a tug. That's good. And then we're again putting the shrink tubing over the end of the terminal. And let me just grab an extension cord and my heat gun real quick. All right, now let's shrink the shrink tubing here. Setting number 1. Let's make sure we have the shrink tubing far enough on this terminal end here. Yeah. This glue-lined shrink tubing needs a little bit more heat and a little bit more time to fully shrink together because it's relatively thick. It also makes the end of that wire a little stiffer at the end, which is good, so you don't have a problem with in the individual conductors breaking or cracking. And it makes it waterproof as well, more or less. And then you can tell that the glue has done its job once there's a little bit of clear hot glue coming out of the end of the shrink tubing. So that's that. Now we let that cool down. And then in the meantime, I'll get you a little closer and we're going to put the new horn in place. So, one bolt, where did it go? The bolt actually has a lock washer and a flat washer on it. And then the horn just goes behind the bracket. The bracket has a lip on the side. It's kind of like an angle, so that when you put the horn on, that it doesn't sway left or right. So let's see how easily we can get this bolt started. I guess the $20 one from eBay did its job. But a horn is really an important safety feature on your bike. You're rolling through town, people may be crossing the street, walking across the street, and usually they pay attention to cars, but motorcycles, they very easily miss. And then, if you run into someone, then you're the idiot for not doing anything about it. So oftentimes when I'm in like downtown somewhere, riding through the little streets, surface streets, I have my thumb on the horn button just to make sure that I can alert someone before they step into the street right in front of me, or riding through a parking lot or something like that, and you don't want someone to back out right in front of you. I guess a two-tone horn made by Hella would be a worthwhile upgrade, but then you have to mount them here somewhere on the side, or some people put them on crash bars. Crash bars are also not an original piece to this bike. It's kind of a period correct accessory, and then people mount horns and extra lights on those. But I currently don't have any crash bars, and I don't know if I want them. Some people say they are causing more damage than anything if you actually crash the bike, because then you don't have a bashed up valve cover, but you have a bent frame afterwards, so. And yeah. So for now, one OEM replacement from BMW is going on here, and with 2 fresh terminals. Okay, and crank down, yeah. So that's that. It's not touching anything. There's no labeling on the terminals here on the horn, which side is positive or negative. So let's pull this cable around here a little bit. Kind of like that. Stick one on there. These flag 90-degree terminals, they are always relatively tight going onto the spade that you stick them onto, which is, I guess, a good thing. Now this is a little not so pretty. All right, now let's give it a try. Yeah, sounds different, huh? Maybe I can find a better way of hanging this wiring here. I wonder if I turn the terminals around, if that makes any difference in sound. Let's do that just for grins. Oh, wrong way. First that one, and then the lower one. Okay, so this is different orientation. Not really, huh? Doesn't sound any different. So I guess we're just gonna leave it like this. Alrighty guys, so that's it already. Our open heart surgery completed. Patient survived and we have a new horn. Sounds different and I hope it gets the pedestrians' attention if I ever need to do that. Alrighty guys, I hope you liked this short little video. If you do, please give me a thumbs up, helps the channel out, motivates me to make more content. We have a few bigger projects coming up. I have a set of Mikuni carburetors for my Airhead sitting around that I want to try out on this one here. What else do we want to do on this motorcycle? Ride it. Maybe I'll try to make a riding video with you guys somewhere nice here in the Sierra Nevada mountains. If I modify anything, work on something, I'll definitely make sure to take you along. All right, guys, take care. See you in the next one. Bye.